This is a modern style living room chair, albeit without upholstery cushions. I'm doing two of these currently in the shop. It has complex geometry and many bed bolt mortise and tenon joints. Some of these parts can be a challenge to dimension. I'll show my strategy for dimensions on one component of the model, the back stile. I'll bring a copy of the back stile over to this clear space down the red axis. I need to rotate this up to a vertical position lined up with a blue axis. Then orbit, pan, and zoom with the mouse to obtain a good perspective view of the component. I'll go ahead and label the component called backstyle with a text tool. Next, make a scene for this component called backstyle. And then update the scene. Okay, with the dimension tool then, I can begin to place the major overall dimensions. That is, all of the dimensions that make sense in this large picture. The overall length, the widths, and so on. Up here at the top, I want to show the dimensions of that rectangle at the top. And then maybe down at the bottom we need an overall width so I can size the lumber for this particular component. And that's about all we can do in this scale, overall scale. I use layers for dimensions, and as a standard I have these text and dimension layers. In this view I only want to have perspective dimensions showing, so I'll uncheck all the other layers and then update the scene. With the select tool then, I click on all the dimensions and text holding down the shift key, and then click on the layer toolbar to move all of these dimensions to the perspective layer. I'm not messing with layer 0. All the graphics continue to be on layer 0. The only thing I'm changing are the dimensions. I just noticed I've got the back style scene out of order, so I'm adjusting that. Okay, a lot more dimensions need to be shown. So I'm going to zoom in to the top of the style to add more detailed dimensions. I'll make this a new scene called top of back style. Oh, but I need to check layers again, and in this case I'm going to knock off the perspective dimensions and will only show dimensions that are in my detailed layer. Update the scene again for those layer changes. Sometimes I find it useful to apply a guideline to help fix a dimension. Now I can get a good perpendicular measurement from the outer edge of the stile to the mortise edge. Now I can delete that guideline. The width of the mortise is shown here, 5/16. And I want to see a length of the mortise. And I want that lined up with the mortise itself. So watch the axis color, not the red axis, but the alignment here is where I want that to place. Distance between the two separate mortises, and then the length of the lower mortise, again lined up properly. That round cylinder represents a hole through the mortise. It's for a bed bolt connection. And I'm going to measure down to the center of that hole. Okay. And I can now, there's some other dimensions up here, the depth of the mortise. I'll show the overall rectangular size up here at the top, again on this view. That's about it for the top. And I'll label it again, and now go ahead and select all the dimensions and text. Probably be easier just to select everything here and then deselect the actual component rather than clicking on all the dimensions. And then go up to the layers toolbar and pick detail. So now all of those dimensions will not show in the previous scene, and only detail dimensions show up in this scene. So it's working well. We can do a similar approach at the bottom for the various details down here. I'll just go ahead and make a scene called the bottom of the back stile. And I better check the layers, and only detail is on. That's good. And now I'm ready to place some dimensions here. I'll just first of all show this little mortise here and get the distance off the edge using that guideline approach. And then I need to know the width of the mortise. Sometimes I show the X-ray view of these components so I can also dimension the depths of things and so on. Okay, I'll stop there with dimensioning this lower portion, but I need to select all the dimensions and again put them in the detail layer. I can go back to the top view, They're good. Go back to the overall view, and I can see that none of the detail dimensions are shown in the overall view. One more scene to do. I need a full-size template, and this will be straight on front view and set to parallel projection. Make a new scene called back style template. And then for layers, this is the front view, so I only want front view dimensions to show up. Knock off perspective and detail dimensions. Update the scene again to make sure it remembers the layers I want to show in that scene. Go ahead and label again. And I may or may not dimension in the template view because I'm not really paying too much attention to the dimensions. I'm just cutting this out and pasting it on poster board and using it to mark up the lumber. Let me get this length of this tenon down here. I'm going to have to orbit a little bit so I can grab the right corner and get that dimension of the tenons. And that's about it. With the printout of these 4 scenes, I'll have no difficulty making this complex component in the shop.